Hi, I'm Carl Turner reporting for Pixels and Pills from BDI's Social Communications and Healthcare Conference. I'm here with Marc Monseau, Director of Corporate Communications and Social Media for J&J. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of creating a personality through your social media?
Absolutely. I mean, most of the social media channels are deeply personal, right? So if you're on Twitter, or if you have your own blog, those are your personal thoughts and beliefs. And so there's been a lot of discussion in recent years about how can companies have that kind of personal role? I mean, the reality is companies are comprised of thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people. Now, I'm not saying that all hundreds of thousands of people should necessarily be blogging or twittering or whatever, but we're all people who have different opinions and different thoughts and different ideas. And it behooves us to kind of provide some of them a voice in different spaces, particularly if they tend to be experts in their areas, to give them an opportunity to share some of their insights, some of their knowledge, but also to interconnect with others. The one thing about social media that I found as well is that when you start to engage, it's very serendipitous. You end up encountering and finding things out about yourself and about your industry that you may not otherwise know. And so it is actually by kind of freeing up and enabling people to sort of interact, it's a two-way street. The company ends up getting something out of it as well. But the idea is that you to be able to connect with people on a personal level, you have to behave in a personal way.
Okay, you also spoke about relevance a little bit later in your talk, and I was thinking about the two of them, relevance versus personality, and it seems like sometimes those two things could be at odds with each other in terms of creating social media. Like if the personality that you're trying to put in is so high because you're trying to develop content that it's deeply personal and that people are really interested in, and then there's the relevance right. So how do you go about balancing the two?
That's a tough question, and I don't have all the answers for that. I think, though, the important thing is to really understand your audience and understand who you're interacting with. And through that, I think then you develop some sense of what you could be providing that would indeed be relevant, right? So it's sort of understanding who that audience is. You start to see what are they looking for? What are the concerns that they have? And from there, you can start to understand, well, what role can we play in that space? What aspects of their needs in terms of making healthcare decision making can we contribute to, and you can still do that on a personal basis, but it tends to be something where you could be you could be providing relevant content in that way.
Okay, you also talked about trust, and you talked about how J&J has given you this deep trust, which has allowed you to do a lot of things. But I think it's important for people to hear how trust kind of eases the process in developing social media at a corporate level. Can you just talk a little bit about that, how it's eased the process and just made what you do easier?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, if you're going to empower people to interact with others online, you're going to have to trust them to make decisions very rapidly and very quickly. And through that, it's really dependent upon, gaining both on the person who's doing that interaction as well as on the company to basically look and say that you may be an employee who has this level of knowledge, this level of understanding, but you also respect the limits that we will put down, that there are certain things that you can say and certain things that you can't say. And the individual then needs to respect that as well back to the organization, understanding kind of where they should be playing. And it's through that then you can create that degree of trust that will enable you to really engage. And that gives you the flexibility to move with alacrity. And that's really what it all comes down to.
Right, and I know that at the FDA meeting on social media and the internet, you and J&J provided what you thought are the ways that you can kind of handle adverse event reporting. Could you reiterate some of the the core things that you feel were important to what you said?
Well, I think I'm not going to go through all the details. We actually submitted quite a long paper and report on all of that. But in the end, a couple of things really stood out. One is that we felt very strongly that companies shouldn't be responsible for monitoring the whole of the internet, right? However, that on properties that they own, control, or have some degree of responsibility for, they do have that responsibility to obviously to track and report AEs, and to really kind of moderate that content in a responsible way, and to ensure that it's very clear the way in which that content is being presented, that it's sort of in accordance with all promotional guidelines.
Thanks so much for your time, Mark.
Thanks.
I'm Carl Turner, reporting for Pixels and Pills from BDI's Social Communications and Healthcare Conference.